The notification chimed on her phone just as she was loading the dishwasher. A smile crept across her face as she read the message from Daniel, her old college friend who'd recently reconnected with her on social media. Still thinking about Paris. 2 weeks from now. My treat. You deserve a break. She glanced toward the living room where her husband sat reading, oblivious to the flutter of excitement in her chest. They'd been married for 12 years, and somewhere along the way, the spark had dimmed to barely a flicker. Daniel, with his adventurous spirit and easy charm, made her feel alive again, like the person she used to be before mortgages and routines had buried her dreams. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. This was wrong, wasn't it? But they were just friends. Nothing physical had happened. They'd been meeting for coffee, long lunches that stretched into afternoons. He understood her in ways her husband never had. He listened. He saw her. I'm in, she typed back, her heart racing. But I'll need to figure out what to tell him. The lies came easier than she expected. Over the next few days, she crafted her story carefully, a girls' trip with her old roommate Sarah, who lived across the country. Sarah, who her husband had never met, whose existence couldn't be easily verified. She dropped casual mentions of it during dinner, testing the waters. Sarah's been going through a rough time, she said one evening, pushing food around her plate. Her divorce is really hitting her hard. She needs to get away. Her husband looked up from his meal, his expression neutral. That's tough. When is she thinking? 2 weeks from now. She found some great deals to Paris. I know it's short notice, but I was thinking, maybe I should go with her? She really needs support, and I haven't taken a vacation in years. She watched his face carefully, but he simply nodded. That sounds nice. You should go. You've been stressed lately. Relief and guilt warred in her chest. Really? You're okay with it? Of course. Sarah needs a friend right now. And you're right, you need a break. He reached across the table and squeezed her hand. Go to Paris. Enjoy yourself. The ease of his acceptance should have felt like a victory, but something in his eyes made her uncomfortable. A knowing quality she couldn't quite place. She pushed the feeling aside and threw herself into planning. Over the next week, she and Daniel texted constantly, always careful to delete their conversations. They planned restaurants, selected a hotel in the Marais district with exposed wooden beams and a view of cobblestone streets. Daniel sent her photos of the suite he'd booked. One bed, she noticed, her stomach clenching with a mixture of anxiety and anticipation. We're adults, he'd said during one of their lunch meetings, his hand covering hers across the table. We both know what this is. We deserve to be happy. She'd nodded, ignoring the voice in her head that whispered about his wife, Elena, who she'd met once at a company picnic. Elena with her warm smile and her collection of photos showing their 2 young children. Elena, who worked night shifts as a nurse and probably had no idea her husband was planning a romantic escape. 3 days before the trip, she began packing in secret, hiding the new lingerie she'd bought beneath her regular clothes. She told her husband she was leaving early Friday morning, that Sarah had already flown into New York and would meet her at JFK. Thursday night, she lay awake beside her husband, listening to his steady breathing. Tomorrow, she'd cross a line she could never uncross. Tomorrow, everything would change. She reached for her phone one last time, finding a message from Daniel. Can't wait to have you all to myself in the city of love. She typed back quickly, a friend invited me to Paris. Don't be jealous. The response from her husband's phone, which she thought was on silent, lit up the dark room. Enjoy, his wife will love this. Her blood ran cold. She turned slowly to find her husband awake, watching her with an expression she'd never seen before. What did you say? She whispered. He sat up, turning on the bedside lamp. I said, enjoy Paris. I'm sure Daniel's wife Elena will find it fascinating. I just sent her all your text messages. The silence in the bedroom felt suffocating, broken only by the sound of her own rapid breathing. She stared at her husband, her mind racing to process what he'd just said. His face remained calm, almost eerily so, but his eyes held a steel she'd never witnessed in all their years together. What did you do? Her voice came out as barely a whisper. He set his phone down on the nightstand with deliberate care. I forwarded every text message, every photo, every planning detail about your romantic Parisian getaway to Elena Martinez. You remember Elena, don't you? Daniel's wife. The woman who works double shifts at the hospital to support their family while her husband plans secret vacations with married women. She felt the room spinning. How did you? When did you? How long have I known? He finished her question. About 6 weeks. Since the third time you met Daniel for one of your extended lunch breaks. You weren't as careful as you thought. You left your location services on. You came home smelling like his cologne. You smiled at your phone in ways you haven't smiled at me in years. Tears sprang to her eyes, but she couldn't tell if they were from shame, fear, or anger at being caught. If you knew, why didn't you say something? Why did you let me? Let you dig your own grave. He stood up, walking to the window and staring out into the darkness. Because I needed to see how far you'd actually go. I needed to know if the woman I married was still in there somewhere, or if she'd completely disappeared. I kept hoping you'd wake up, realize what you were doing, and stop. We haven't actually done anything, she protested weakly. It's just been. Just been what? Coffee dates? Long lunches? Planning a romantic week in Paris. He turned back to face her, and now she could see the pain beneath his controlled exterior. You bought new lingerie. You learned basic French phrases. You researched couples' activities. Don't insult both of us by pretending this was innocent. Her phone began buzzing insistently on the nightstand. Daniel's name flashed across the screen again and again. She reached for it with shaking hands. The messages came rapid fire. What the hell did you do? Elena knows everything. She's losing her mind. Did you tell your husband? This is a disaster. She's calling divorce lawyers. Before she could respond, her phone rang. Daniel's name appeared, and against her better judgment, she answered, putting it on speaker at her husband's gesture. What were you thinking? Daniel's voice was frantic. All his smooth charm evaporated. Elena saw everything. Every message, every photo, every plan. She's threatening to take the kids, the house, everything. I didn't tell anyone, she managed to say. My husband found out and... Your husband? Jesus Christ. Do you realize what you've done? This was supposed to be discreet. This was supposed to be just us, just a what, Daniel? Her husband interjected, his voice cutting across the line. Just a harmless affair. Just a little fun while your wife works nights to pay your mortgage. Silence fell on the other end of the line. Who is this? Daniel finally asked, his voice smaller now. This is the husband. The one who's been watching you take my wife on lunch dates, buying her expensive coffee, filling her head with promises of Paris and romance. Tell me, Daniel, how many other women have you taken to Paris? Or was my wife special? Listen, man, this isn't, we never actually. Save it, her husband cut him off. Elena already has the evidence she needs. And here's the thing, Daniel, she's not just upset. She's on her way to New York right now. She took emergency leave from the hospital. She booked a ticket on the same flight you were planning to take to Paris tomorrow. The color drained from her face. What? Oh, you heard me right, her husband continued, his voice taking on an almost casual tone that somehow made everything more terrifying. See, when I sent Elena those messages, we had a long conversation. She's quite remarkable, actually, much more impressive than you deserve, Daniel. She decided that if you wanted to go to Paris so badly, she'd make sure you had company. Your wife's company. On the plane, in the airport, maybe even at that romantic hotel you booked. You can't be serious, Daniel breathed. Completely serious. And here's the best part, I'm going too. Same flight. I figured I'd paid for half of my wife's ticket with our joint account, so I might as well get some use out of it. We'll all have plenty of time to talk during that 7-hour flight. She felt like she might be sick. You're insane. This is insane. Her husband turned to look at her, and for the first time, she saw genuine anger flash in his eyes. What's insane is throwing away 12 years of marriage for a man who panics the moment his comfortable life is threatened. What's insane is not having the courage to either fix our marriage or end it honestly. What's insane is making me the fool while you planned your grand romantic escape. Daniel's voice came through the phone again, desperate now. We can fix this. We can explain. Explain what? Elena's voice suddenly joined the call, and both she and Daniel froze. Explain how you've been planning a trip to Paris while I've been working 60-hour weeks. Explain the hotel room with one bed. Explain the restaurant reservations for romantic dinners. Please, Daniel, I'm dying to hear these explanations. The phone call dissolved into chaos, Daniel stammering, Elena's voice sharp with betrayal and rage, her own voice caught in her throat as reality crashed down around her. Her husband ended the call with a single tap. Pack your bag, he said quietly. You wanted to go to Paris. So we're all going to Paris. JFK Airport buzzed with the usual pre-dawn chaos, families juggling luggage, business travelers clutching coffee cups, couples embarking on romantic getaways. She stood near the check-in counter for Air France Flight 007, her stomach churning with dread. The bag she'd packed so carefully with new clothes and secret lingerie now felt like evidence of a crime. Her husband stood beside her, his carry-on bag neat and professional, his expression unreadable. He'd barely spoken during the drive to the airport, and the silence had been worse than any argument they'd ever had. There, he said quietly, nodding toward the entrance. She followed his gaze and felt her heart drop. Elena Martinez walked through the sliding doors, pulling a small suitcase behind her. Even in sweatpants and a hoodie, with dark circles under her eyes suggesting she hadn't slept, Elena carried herself with a dignity that made her feel small. Behind Elena, looking like a man walking to his execution, came Daniel. He'd lost the confident swagger she'd found so attractive. His expensive jacket was wrinkled, his hair uncombed. When their eyes met across the terminal, he quickly looked away. Elena marched straight toward them, her eyes locked on her husband. Where is she? Before she could shrink back, her own husband stepped aside, leaving her exposed. Elena's gaze swept over her, taking in every detail with a nurse's clinical assessment. So you're the reason my children asked why Mommy was crying, Elena said, her voice eerily calm. You're the reason I had to call my sister at 2 in the morning to come stay with them. You're the homewrecker who was going to spend a week in Paris with my husband. I'm sorry, she stammered. I never meant. You never meant to hurt anyone? You never meant for me to find out? Which part didn't you mean? Elena's composure cracked slightly, her voice rising. Did you ask about his wife? His children? Or did you just not care? Elena, please. Daniel approached cautiously, like someone trying to calm a dangerous animal. Can we talk about this privately? Privately? Elena laughed, a harsh sound that drew stares from nearby travelers. Like you and her talked privately? Planned privately? You want privacy now, after months of sneaking around. It wasn't months, he protested weakly. It was just. Just what? 6 weeks? 8? Does the timeline make it better, Daniel? Does it change the fact that you were planning to cheat on me in the most romantic city in the world? A security officer began moving toward their group, drawn by the raised voices. Her husband noticed and spoke quickly. I suggest we all get through security before we're escorted out of the airport. We can continue this discussion in the terminal. The security line was torture. They stood in an awkward cluster, betrayed spouses on one side, would-be cheaters on the other, with strangers casting curious glances at their tense body language. She caught fragments of whispered conversation behind them. Definitely something going on there. Looks like a Jerry Springer episode. Money says they don't all make it to Paris. Once through security, they found themselves in a quiet gate area, 2 hours before boarding. The 4 of them sat in a loose circle, like couples therapy from hell. Elena broke the silence first. I want to know everything. When did this start? Daniel opened his mouth, but Elena held up her hand. Not you. Her. I want to hear her version. She felt all eyes turn to her. We We reconnected on social media about 3 months ago. We went to college together. It started with just messages, catching up. Then coffee. Then you fell in love. Elena's voice dripped with sarcasm. Then you decided your marriage vows didn't matter. Then what? Then I convinced myself it was innocent, she admitted, tears starting to flow. I told myself we were just friends. That I deserved to feel special, to feel seen. My marriage was struggling, and Daniel made me feel like I mattered. Her husband flinched at that, the first crack in his composure. Elena turned to him. And you? When did you know? 6 weeks ago, he replied. I hired a private investigator after the second lunch date. I've been collecting evidence ever since. Evidence for what? She asked, horror dawning. Are you divorcing me? I haven't decided yet, he said coldly. That depends on how the next few days go. Daniel finally found his voice. This is insane. We're not actually going to Paris. We can't. We shouldn't. Oh, we're going, Elena interrupted. See, I'm not just here to confront you. I'm here because I've never been to Paris. I've worked night shifts for 10 years to help pay off your student loans, to build our life, to give our children stability. And you know what? I'm going to see the Eiffel Tower. I'm going to walk along the Seine. I'm going to eat croissants in a cafe. And you're going to watch me do it while remembering what you almost threw away. The boarding announcement crackled over the speakers. Business class passengers were invited to board first. That's us, her husband said, standing. I upgraded all of us. Figured if we're doing this, we might as well be comfortable. The 7-hour flight was excruciating. They were seated in pairs, she with her husband, Daniel with Elena, across the aisle from each other. Every moment of the journey was heavy with unspoken words and barely contained emotion. 3 hours in, as the cabin lights dimmed for the overnight flight, Elena leaned across the aisle. You know what the worst part is, she said quietly. I would have understood if you'd just been honest. If you'd come to me and said the marriage was broken, that you needed something different. I would have been hurt, but at least it would have been honest. Instead, you made me the fool. You made me the idiot wife who works nights while her husband plans romantic vacations with another woman. She couldn't meet Elena's eyes. Across the aisle, she saw her own husband staring out the window at the darkness, his reflection in the glass showing a pain she'd never fully appreciated until now. As Paris grew closer with each passing mile, she realized that the confrontation at JFK had been just the beginning. The real reckoning was still to come. The plane touched down at Charles de Gaulle Airport just after noon, Paris time. The City of Light greeted them with overcast skies and a light drizzle, fitting weather for their disastrous arrival. As they deplaned, the four of them moved like reluctant satellites, pulled together by gravity but desperately wanting to fly apart. Customs and baggage claim passed in uncomfortable silence. Daniel kept trying to catch her eye, but she couldn't bring herself to look at him. The man who'd seemed so charming, so confident in coffee shops back home, now appeared diminished, a husband caught in a lie, not a romantic hero. The hotel is in Le Marais, her husband announced as they exited into the arrivals hall. I called ahead. Interesting conversation with the manager. Apparently, the romantic suite Daniel booked. They've upgraded us to adjoining rooms. All 4 of us. Same floor, connected doors. Isn't that cozy? Daniel's face went pale. You can't be serious. Try me, her husband replied evenly. Elena and I had a long conversation on the plane. We've decided that since we're here, we're going to see how our respective spouses handle actually facing the consequences of their actions. Together. The taxi ride into Paris should have been magical, her first glimpse of the city she'd dreamed about for months. The wide boulevards, the distinctive Parisian architecture, the cafes with their sidewalk tables. Instead, she watched it all through a haze of shame and disbelief. They arrived at the Hôtel de Vigny, a boutique establishment with flower boxes in the windows and the kind of charm she'd imagined sharing with Daniel. The manager, a thin woman named Madame Beaumont, greeted them with an expression that suggested she'd heard the whole story. Ah, the American party, she said in heavily accented English. Your rooms are ready. As requested, they are adjacent with a connecting door. How romantic. The rooms were beautiful, exposed brick, tall windows overlooking a courtyard, antique furniture mixed with modern amenities. In any other circumstances, she would have been delighted. Now, she could only think about how the room she stood in was meant to be her love nest with Daniel. Elena appeared in the connecting doorway, looking around with an expression that mixed appreciation with bitterness. Nice choice, Daniel. A little expensive for a man who complained about the cost of our daughter's braces, but nice. Elena, please, Daniel started, but she cut him off with a sharp gesture. No. You don't get to Elena, please me. Not here. Not now. She turned to the group. Here's what's going to happen. It's 2 o'clock. We're all exhausted, emotional, and jet-lagged. We're going to rest for a few hours. Then, at 7 tonight, we're all going to dinner. Together. At that restaurant you reserved, Daniel. The one with the view of Notre Dame. The one you said was perfect for romance. You can't be serious, he protested. I'm absolutely serious, Elena shot back. You wanted to bring her to Paris? You wanted to wine and dine her in romantic restaurants? Well, congratulations. You're getting exactly what you wanted, just with different dinner companions. Her husband nodded in agreement. And tomorrow, we're doing the full tourist experience. Eiffel Tower, Louvre, river cruise. All the things you two had planned. Except as a group. She finally found her voice, hoarse from hours of silence. This is torture. This is cruel. Cruel. Elena's voice rose. You want to talk about cruel? Cruel is discovering text messages planning a romantic getaway while you're standing in a hospital supply closet on your break. Cruel is having to explain to your children why their father has to go on a business trip the same week you can't get time off to attend their school play. Cruel is realizing that while you were working double shifts, your husband was shopping for lingerie with another woman. The words hit like physical blows. She sank onto the edge of the ornate bed, truly seeing for the first time the full extent of the damage she'd been willing to cause. Her husband sat down in an armchair, his controlled facade finally cracking. Do you want to know what the worst part is for me? It's not even the affair, or almost affair, or whatever you want to call it. It's the way you looked at me yesterday when I confirmed you could go. Like you'd won. Like you'd successfully deceived the stupid husband. That look will haunt me for the rest of my life. The room fell silent except for the sound of rain beginning to fall harder outside. Daniel cleared his throat. Look, maybe we should all just go home. Cut our losses. This trip was a mistake. Running away. Elena asked coldly. That's your solution? No. Daniel. You wanted Paris. We're staying in Paris. But we're going to do it my way. That evening, they found themselves at Le Petit Châtelet, the riverside restaurant Daniel had chosen for its romantic ambience. The tables were candlelit, the music soft, the view of Notre Dame Cathedral stunning even in the rain. They were seated at a table for 4 instead of the intimate table for 2 Daniel had reserved. The waiter, sensing the tension, maintained professional distance as he presented menus and poured wine. Around them, genuine couples gazed at each other with affection, celebrating anniversaries or honeymoons, embodying the romance of Paris that their group so thoroughly lacked. Elena raised her wine glass. A toast, she said. To the truth. May it always come out, no matter how painful. They clinked glasses in the most uncomfortable toast she'd ever experienced. Over escargot and coq au vin, Elena asked the questions she'd been holding back. She wanted details. When had they first crossed the line from friendship to something more? Who initiated it? What lies had they told? Each answer felt like a confession, stripping away the romantic narrative she'd constructed until only the ugly reality remained. I told myself you were unhappy, she admitted, looking at her husband. That our marriage was already over in all but name. That I deserved to feel wanted. Were you wrong, he asked quietly, about being unhappy? She thought about it honestly for the first time. No, but I was wrong about how to handle it. I was a coward. I should have talked to you. Should have suggested counseling, or separation, or anything honest. Instead you found someone who told you what you wanted to hear, Elena finished. Daniel's very good at that. Making women feel special, seen, understood. You're not the first, you know. Daniel's head snapped up. What? Did you think I didn't know about the others? Elena asked, her voice tired. The co-worker 3 years ago? The woman from your gym? I found evidence, confronted you. You swore it was nothing, promised to change. And I believed you because I wanted to believe you. Because we have children. Because I loved you. Her voice broke on the last word. But I'm done believing you now. The dinner dragged on, each course another layer of truth and recrimination. By dessert, Daniel was crying openly, his carefully constructed image completely shattered. She found herself oddly detached, watching him as if seeing him clearly for the first time, not a romantic hero, but a middle-aged man who made the same mistakes repeatedly because he'd never faced real consequences. As they left the restaurant, walking along the Seine in the rain, Elena linked arms with her husband. Tomorrow, she said, we go to the Eiffel Tower. And we start figuring out what happens next. The Eiffel Tower rose into a clearing sky, its iron lattice dark against the pale blue of morning. They stood in line with hundreds of tourists, phones out for selfies, guidebooks open, children bouncing with excitement. The four of them were silent, exhausted from a sleepless night in adjacent hotel rooms where every sound carried through thin walls. She'd heard Elena crying around 3 in the morning. Heard Daniel trying to comfort her and being rebuffed. Heard her own husband pacing in his room, his footsteps a steady rhythm of someone processing a life-changing decision. Now, as they rode the elevator to the top platform, she studied the 3 people who'd become unwilling companions in this nightmare of her own making. Elena stared out at the rising city view, her jaw set with determination. Daniel looked diminished, his expensive jacket rumpled, his confident posture gone. Her husband watched her with an expression she couldn't read, not quite anger, not quite pity, something more complex than either. At the summit, Paris spread beneath them in all directions. The Seine cut through the city like a silver ribbon. Sacré-Cœur gleamed white in the distance. It was everything she'd imagined, everything she'd dreamed about during those secret planning sessions with Daniel. And it meant nothing. Elena moved to the railing, breathing in the cold morning air. You know what I realized last night, she said to no one in particular. I've spent 10 years making myself smaller so Daniel could feel bigger. Working nights so he could have the day schedule he preferred. Handling all the childcare so he could have his gym time, his social life. I told myself it was partnership, but it was just diminishment. She stepped forward hesitantly. Elena, Don't, Elena cut her off, but not unkindly. I don't need your apology. I don't need your guilt. What I need is for you to understand something. You didn't steal my husband. He was already gone. He's been gone for years. You were just the catalyst that made me finally see it. Daniel reached for Elena's arm. That's not fair. I made mistakes, but our marriage is over, Elena said simply, pulling away from him. Not because of her. Because of you. Because you've shown me, repeatedly, that you will always choose easy comfort over difficult honesty. You will always take the path that feels good in the moment, regardless of who gets hurt. She turned to Daniel, really looking at him. She's right. You told me my marriage was broken, that I deserved better. But you never mentioned your own marriage was struggling. You presented yourself as this perfect alternative, but you were just running away, like you always do. That's rich, coming from you, Daniel snapped, his desperation turning to anger. You were married too. Don't act like you're innocent in this. I'm not, she agreed quietly. I'm absolutely not innocent. But at least I can admit it now. Her husband finally spoke, his voice carrying across the platform. I've made a decision. Everyone turned to look at him. I'm filing for divorce, he said, looking directly at her. Not out of anger, or revenge, or to punish you. But because Elena's right, you can't stay in a marriage where one person has already left. And you left, even if your body was still in our house. You left months ago, maybe years ago, and I didn't want to see it." The words should have devastated her, but instead, she felt an odd sense of relief. "I understand," she said. "And I'm sorry. Not for the outcome, I think you're right, but for the way I handled it. For the lies, the deception, the cowardice. What will you do?" Elena asked her directly. She looked out at Paris, at the city she'd fantasized about as the backdrop for a new beginning. "I don't know. Therapy. Probably. A lot of it. Try to figure out who I am without defining myself by a relationship. Learn to be honest, even when it's uncomfortable." "And you?" Elena turned to Daniel. "What will you do?" He looked between them all, seeming lost. "Try to save our marriage? Work on myself? I don't know, Elena. Tell me what you want me to do." "That's exactly the problem," Elena said sadly. "You're still asking someone else to tell you what to do, how to be. I don't want to be your moral compass, Daniel. I want to be your partner. But you have to want that too, and you have to be willing to do the hard work. Not just when you're caught, but always." A tour group moved around them, chattering in Japanese, pointing at landmarks. Life continued, indifferent to their personal dramas. Elena pulled out her phone and took a selfie with the Paris skyline behind her. "There," she said, looking at the photo. "My first picture of Paris. My first picture as a woman who's choosing herself." "Are you divorcing him?" her husband asked Elena directly. Elena considered the question. "I don't know yet. But I'm going to finish this trip the way I planned last night. I'm going to the Louvre. I'm going to eat real French pastries. I'm going to have the Paris experience I've dreamed about since I was a little girl. And I'm going to do it without him." She looked at Daniel. "You should go home. Be with your children. Explain to them what's happening in language they can understand. Show them, for once, that you can face consequences instead of running from them." Daniel opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. Something in Elena's expression, the finality, the certainty, seemed to reach him. He nodded slowly. "Okay. You're right. I should. I need to go home." Her husband extended his hand to Elena. "Would you like company? For the museum, the pastries, the experience? No pressure, no ulterior motives. Just one betrayed spouse to another, trying to salvage something good from this disaster." Elena studied him, then took his hand. "I'd like that. Thank you." They began walking toward the elevator, leaving her and Daniel alone on the observation deck. "This isn't how it was supposed to go," Daniel said quietly. "No," she agreed. "It was supposed to be romantic, passionate, the start of something new. But we weren't starting something new. We were just running away from something old." "Do you regret it? Us, I mean." She thought about it honestly. "I regret the way I did it. The lies, the betrayal, the pain I caused. But I don't regret the wake-up call. I needed to see that I'd become someone I didn't like. Someone who lied easily, who justified hurting others, who blamed everyone else for her unhappiness." Daniel left that afternoon, rebooking his flight, leaving the romantic Parisian escape behind. She stayed through the weekend, not with her husband or Elena, but alone. She walked the streets of Montmartre, sat in cafes writing long letters of apology she'd never send, visited museums and saw beauty she couldn't quite feel yet. On Sunday evening, before her own flight home, she returned to the Eiffel Tower at sunset. The iron structure glowed gold against the darkening sky. Around her, couples kissed, families laughed, tourists captured memories. Her phone buzzed, a text from her husband. "Elena and I spent the day at Versailles. She's remarkable. We're both flying home tomorrow. Different flights, different futures, but I think we'll both be okay eventually. I hope you will too." She typed back, "Thank you. For everything. For catching me, for confronting me, for forcing me to face what I'd become. I hope you find happiness." His response came quickly, "I hope we both do. Just, honestly this time, She put her phone away and watched the lights begin to twinkle on the tower as evening fell. Paris was just as beautiful as she'd imagined, but not at all as she'd expected to see it. She'd come here chasing a fantasy of escape, of romance, of becoming someone new. Instead, she'd been forced to see exactly who she was: flawed, dishonest, capable of hurting others to avoid her own pain. It wasn't a comfortable truth, but it was truth nonetheless. As she walked away from the Eiffel Tower for the last time, heading back to the hotel to pack, she made herself a promise: no more running. No more easy lies. No more looking to someone else to fix what was broken inside her. The next chapter of her life wouldn't be written in Paris with a romantic lover. It would be written at home, in therapy sessions, in difficult conversations, in the slow, unglamorous work of becoming someone she could respect. The City of Light had shown her the shadows she'd been hiding. Now it was time to face them. Behind her, the Eiffel Tower continued its hourly light show, sparkling against the night sky, beautiful, enduring, and utterly indifferent to the human dramas playing out beneath it. Paris would still be there, still beautiful, still romantic, for people who came to it honestly. Someday, perhaps, she'd return. Not as someone running away, but as someone who'd learned to stay and face the hard things. Not seeking romance in external places, but carrying it within herself: self-respect, self-knowledge, self-forgiveness earned through genuine change. For now, though, it was time to go home.